Should I spit my gum out
I mean,
so I'm not smacking? Is there garbage in here?
no. You can just put it in that trophy cup. How brave are you?
Are you for real?
Yeah. That trophy means nothing.
I feel like you're gonna judge me.
No, it's fine. Fucking gross. God! Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I am excited for this week's guest. They are coming up on a year of sobriety. Shut up. They also are from the Tilt-A-Whirl circuit. So she comes from a long line of carnies. Ladies and gentlemen, Breanna Marie.
Hello.
Let's start off with the obvious. Okay, where did you grow up?
Monticello, Minnesota.
And were you there like majority of your childhood, or did you guys move around?
No, we were pretty much there my entire childhood. Other than living with some family members sporadically, different places, but generally around Monticello.
Okay. And do you have older brothers, sisters?
I have one younger brother.
One younger brother.
Yep.
Okay. So, parents, did they stay together?
No.
No. How old were you when they divorced?
They never got married. They were together till I was like 4, I think. We all lived together, and then they split. I think my mom and my dad probably were still kind of together after around when I was 4. And then my brother was born, I think, right after we ended up moving out. So
Growing up, what was like the way that your mom would talk about your father? Was it in a good light, or was it just a constant shit fest on dad?
when I was that young, I don't really remember. I know as I got older and my mom started seeing different people, I think those people kind of fed in to how my mom talked about my dad.
Mm.
My mom really loved my dad, and I think she still does to this day, but she had to leave him because of his drinking.
Mm.
Because there was like abuse and stuff happening when he would drink. So it was more of a she left because of a safety
Mm.
and he wouldn't give up the alcohol. So yeah, so I think if he would have quit, they probably still would have been together today. But so I never really heard her spoke badly, like poorly of him
Oh,
as I think of it, other than his drinking and what happened when he would drink.
okay.
So
Well, that's good. I mean, it's tough. I mean, dealing with addiction in the family is tough as it is, but like when parents are separated and, somebody's trying to do better, but the other parent is like, oh, they're a fucking loser and they're, you can't go over there because, XYZ,
right.
making it harder for you to establish that connection. So was your relationship with your dad good, bad, meh?
My relationship with my dad is good, but he has his own issues and his drinking where he's never really been a dad.
Okay.
If like I don't know how to
In a
explain it.
traditional sense.
Yeah, like he loves me and he cares about me and he tries to offer me advice, but there were times where he would need to be somewhere for us kids and he wouldn't be there. And there was a lot of disappointment and just not being able to rely on him. I love my dad dearly, but now it's like I worry about him because you can only drink like that for so long. And I just worry, just like crazy stuff. Like he's going to get wasted one day and fall down the stairs and get hurt and nobody will find him and stuff like that. But I love my dad. Like he is like my best friend. I we have a very good relationship, and when I was still drinking, I would drink with him a lot. So that it's hard to spend time with him now that I don't drink. As long as he doesn't get to a certain point, then it's okay, but it's just hard because I see myself in him
Yeah.
with the addiction part, so
Well, and I mean, with certain types of um, bio parents, the advice and the contribution that they imagine isn't until a certain point. So, like, once my kid is here, then I can start to be like, oh, when I was your age, blah 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 blah. But the whole rearing, like traditional rearing of children, just doesn't. They can't make that connection to be able
no.
to help out, which is a bummer. So, like, did it seem like the older you got, the more involved he was?
I mean, he's definitely been there for me when I need him a lot of times. I went through a really gnarly breakup, I think like 5 years ago now, 4, I can't keep track. But he I had ended up moving to California with this guy, and then I ended up coming back home, and he flew out to California and drove me all the way home
Oh wow.
with my 2 cats in the car, and it was so, like, he's there for me, and when I quit drinking, I think a conversation we had really impacted my quitting. He had never really lectured me about my drinking. He would, he'd tell me, like, that was a little out of control, or, like, he would hide the bottle from me when I was blacked out, but, like, after the last time I drank, he talked to me for, like, 45 minutes and basically, like, grilled me like a real dad would,
Oh, okay.
and which he is my real dad, but like a dad would,
No,
and
I know it just out of
but he
character.
was drunk while he did it, but it really struck a chord in me,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Wow, I'm gonna start losing my family now too if I keep going down this path." There are times where he's not like a father figure, but then there's times where like that where he does, make an impact.
I've talked about this before, but I have a friend. His name is Andy, and he and I both have pretty gnarly mental health issues. Um, and even when we're at our lowest, we still would rather help somebody else because we are so enveloped in that darkness that we know exactly, or it's easy for us to relate to somebody or to let them know that, like, you're not alone in how just that helplessness and the isolation. And so we can talk on the phone with people for 2 3 hours and talk them off the ledge, but then the next day, um
You're on the ledge.
yeah, I'm on the ledge
Yep.
and I don't want to talk to anybody. So it's this weird thing of, I know what my suffering is like and I don't want that for you. And so we're able to project kind of the light that we wish we had in our own lives. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Um and yeah, same thing with addiction and all that shit is like, I my mother-in-law was going through some pretty intense shit. We were finding that she was trying to drive drunk, but we couldn't find where these bottles were. And so we did like an intervention where we went into her room, dug around, found just shitloads of Route 100, these empty Route 100 bottles. And even while I was doing that, I was still uh, an addict, like without realizing what was going on, because I'm pretty sure I went home and drank that night. And it's like, you were just enveloped in
The chaos, and
yeah, all
then
of this gnarly shit. But yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm trying to relate to your dad in the sense of like I was saying, we know what that darkness is like and we just hope so much that you don't have to feel that way.
right.
Does he recognize that he's an alcoholic?
He's said some things to me before that we were driving in the car once, and pretty sure he had beer in the back seat, so he might have been a little buzzed, but he had said how he had mentioned he doesn't respect himself enough or
Mm,
something, and it was a weird all the conversations about it are just weird, and I don't really piece them together, but he has, like, said stuff,
yeah,
where it's like he knows, he has an issue, especially when he said that respect, like, I don't respect myself enough thing.
yeah,
It's hard, just because even when he's sober, you can see like, when I was still drinking and just living normal life when I wouldn't drink, just going to the store or just not drinking, just being that anxiety and that when am I gonna drink next kind of feeling, and I see that with him because, like, if he'll come help me move, like, he helped me move into my last apartment. He always has helped me move, but you can see that anxiety start, and it's really that's, like, the most heartbreaking part about it, I guess, is I wish I could give him a glimpse of what has changed for me and just, like, put it into his head and be like, "Look at"
yeah.
but
It's wild they can't get out of their own way to be able to see what could be. So all the thoughts that run through their head are like, "Oh, I wasn't there for this. I never made, amounted to anything. I didn't go to college." Or like whatever the things are, they just let those things pile up, and then this mound. This is the reason why I can never stop drinking is because I deserve. Anytime I get sad while I'm drunk, yeah, it's because of all this shit. I deserve to be this way.
and I totally 100% relate to that because I just remember thinking towards the end of my drinking, I was like, "Well, this is how my life is," because I was in such a dark, just, like, hole, and I kept making a fool of myself and doing shameful things when I would black out, and, like, there was just no love for myself whatsoever, and I think that is what helped me kinda snap out of it, though, is because I was just so low, and I was like, "I don't there's gotta be something different. This can't be my life." Like, I had even wrote a letter in a notebook saying, if I die, like I said to all like, if I overdose or if I drink too much and die, and I was like, "Hopefully my family finds this,"
Yeah.
because I just thought that was gonna be my life. So
Did you have suicidal ideations?
oh,
Or
yeah.
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 Here, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Your relationship with your mom. Like what do you know what she did for work? Was it consistent growing up or
Yeah, she was a dental assistant,
okay.
so she had a good job. Uh, my mom also is
Pull
codependent.
pull that bitch a little closer to you. No, not that. What are you doing? This guy.
This?
Yeah. There you go.
My mom is also codependent. She was there for me and she loved me, but she was a helicopter parent and wouldn't let me make my own mistakes. And so basically, when I turned 18, 19, 20, 21, I went crazy and like
Mm,
I didn't get the normal high school experience of going to high school parties and because she was so like overprotective. And then in the meantime, she had a series of relationships. She had like one boyfriend she got engaged to after like 2 months, and then we moved in with him. And I remember him like locking her in the garage when it was like winter time and like them fighting. And then she ended up marrying my fourth grade teacher, and he was a piece of shit. He was like emotionally abusive and my mom was there for me, but she wasn't in a sense because she was caught up in her own
yeah.
bullshit. And she's married to a good guy now, but she has the mindset of like a housewife.
Mm,
and caters to her husband kind of thing, and
Okay.
we've gotten in a lot of arguments about that, and
You know what that probably is, though?
what?
It's generational trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what your grandma's and grandpa's life was like?
Well, my both grandparents were divorced. My grandpa, my mom's dad married my other grandma, and their relationship was good. Um, she's still around. She lives in Texas. My grandpa passed away, but my mom's mom married a man who is younger than her youngest child
Huh.
and is a complete piece of work. Our whole family hates him. They've been married for 20, 30 years now, and he's abusive. He's an alcoholic. He threatens her. He threatens he's gonna kill her family, kill her. So now she's so brainwashed and so stuck in that abusive situation, she won't get out.
Yeah.
So that's my grandma, my mom's mom. So I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah. Big time. It's such a bummer to hear, the things when I started doing this show, the amount of things that women are put through, not just by men, but by women who unfortunately went through such gnarly shit before that now your shit doesn't sound like anything. They're like, oh, you think that's bad? I got my fucking left foot chopped off. More or less, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, the conversation is how do we keep him from getting mad again? So what can you do to just not antagonize him rather than, oh, get out of there.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because my whole family has tried to get her to leave and offered a place to stay and resources to leave. She has 4 kids. She and my 2 aunts and my mom have always offered a place to go,
Yeah.
but she's stuck in that relationship. She thinks she is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and for all intents purposes, yeah, that she is trapped by, these concepts of who am I if not a wife? Who am I? Am I still a mother if I'm not in this traditional sense? Because, people say partner all the time. But I mean, it really is a partnership in like, financial ways. So like if one of her kids needs help, like does she know on her own, oh, I'm gonna go to the bank and do XYZ, or is it a conversation with him to be like, do we have enough money to be able to help out Jezebel with her pole dancing dreams?
My great grandma passed away, and there's a family farm that she lived in her whole life, my great grandma. So when she passed away, the farm was given to the kids. There's 12 kids.
Jesus.
And my grandma ended up with the farm. So she lives in the house now where her mom lived and where she grew up. But her husband manipulated her enough where now he's, with like if she dies, he gets the house or like,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
and her kids were like, don't do that. Don't put him on the signing or whatever to have rights to the house, but he's got rights.
Pretty sick, dude.
Yeah. Rad.
You know what else is fun about uh being in a family of so many fucking kids? The odds of sexual abuse within the family are way, way up. So there's all kinds of fun trauma that is mixed in there as well. So sick.
Yeah, I have no idea. Who knows what happened?
But that's another thing, right? That generational trauma of like, we just don't talk about it. Like, I mean, the amount of people that I've met that like had to live with, I know a child right now that CPS went to their house because there was sexual abuse from an older brother to, I mean, they're trans, so, but obviously born female. That kid has to continue to live with their brother. There's just this fucking thing that, like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, I don't know, man, but there's a shitload of resources to figure it out now. If my 70-year-old father-in-law, who was a police officer for decades,
Oh god.
yeah, who is borderline racist, not not a fan of the gays, but you know, just go do it over there kind of thing.
Mhm.
If he can do a full 180, he's Democrat, voted in favor of gay marriage, like all of these things. Age is no longer an excuse anymore.
No.
Like there is enough information where, I mean, old people know how to say, Alexa, get me a fucking diet soda. Or I don't know. If they can figure that,
Remind me to take my pills.
if they can figure that shit out, then they can figure out human rights and like how to,
Changing their thinking.
yeah, how to, I mean, it's just not acceptable to me anymore. Like,
No, it's
um,
not.
and another thing that I always say is like, for because I shit on parents, the reason being because I was a shitty parent, and it's not my son's job to make me feel better about the bad things that I did. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be there for him if he has questions and whatnot. So I always put that on parents. It's like you don't have any excuses anymore. Maybe you had an excuse until this very conversation where I'm letting you know you're doing a wrong thing. Now you have zero excuses.
I won't even go to my mom sometimes for certain things because she'll just end up making me feel worse. Like the last time I was having a really hard time and I was depressed, and she told me once, like, if you don't read the Bible, nothing will go right in your life. And like another time, she was like, "Are you drinking again?"
Fun.
And I'm like, "No, mom, I'm not. I'm just having a hard time." So,
Unfortunately, mental health issues run in our family. Aw.
yeah. And she doesn't recognize, like, I try to tell her, like, everybody can benefit from therapy.
Yeah.
Anyone. You don't have to be mentally sick to need therapy.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to, like, try to be a better human, but people around you aren't trying to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. I I recognize that I'm like stupidly lucky. Like my exact story has happened to thousands of people, and 95% of them have relapsed because they don't have a support group. And I had 12 people just at the ready to be there for me, which is insane. Like I'm privileged in that sense. So it's like when I talk to people who are in recovery, it's like I get that my situation isn't the same as yours, and there. But the nice thing about being an adult is you can create your own family.
right.
Like you can accept that you have a mom and a dad and that you love them, but they are unfortunately not equipped to help me with these things. So I need these people. I need to find people who I can rely on in that sense. You know what I'm
See,
saying?
no, and I'm blessed because they are there for me. Like if I ended up homeless, or I would never end up like homeless, or I have a very supportive family, and they tell me they're proud of me, and there's just different issues, so I kind of take what I want and leave the rest kind of thing.
Okay.
But like my grandma is probably my main support between everybody.
Okay.
My dad's mom.
Are you dad? Okay, got it.
She's like my best friend. She's sober. She is very liberal and democratic, and she left a shitty husband, and she's all about talking about codependency and recognizing, things. So like I have people in my family that I can depend on. It's just certain things I can't bring to certain people, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you start to look at family members in that way that, like, I'm not gonna go to the dentist to see if I have cancer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just clicks in that way where you're like, "Oh, no, Todd has no fucking idea how to deal with
Or if
this."
you're Jezebel and have a cocaine problem, probably not go to the
Exactly.
strip club manager for
Yeah,
help.
man. Like, I this is the last time I sprayed on the pole for her before.
God.
Okay, now, with you um, in school, I'm curious as to because were you, like, into dance or anything like that when you were growing up?
Yeah, I started dance when I was probably 4 or 5.
Ooh. Did you
I
do
was
just for kicks?
I did
Did you
actually
really?
for a little bit, yeah.
That's awesome.
But then I joined, like, a little hometown studio that opened up,
Hmm.
and I stayed with them for a while, and then my high school started a dance team when I was in high school,
Oh, awesome.
so I was on dance team. I tried soccer for a little bit, but my mom didn't have the money for me to, like, join the traveling team or
I was
whatever
gonna say, yeah,
team.
traveling,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was another thing, like, growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and I still don't have a lot of money, but, um, so I think that played a factor into what sports we could or couldn't do. But yes, I was a dancer my whole school career.
So, were you friends with the same kids growing up because of dance, or was dance just a thing that you did and then you left and
I'm not really friends with anybody I went to high school with. I didn't have a lot of friends throughout school, and then getting older and my mom being overprotective, I just wouldn't hang out with people.
Right. Yes. Okay, so did your mother's overprotection have a bearing on
Yeah.
the amount of friends that you could have?
Yeah, because it was embarrassing. "Mom, can I go to this movie this Friday or go to the homecoming game?" "Who are you going with? Do I know their parents? Have I met them before?" And it would be this whole thing of, "Well, I need to meet their parents first, or I need to." It turned into a whole fiasco, and I would just give up, and I was like, "Well, I'm just not gonna go then," or I would sneak out at night and go do stuff anyways, or I would wait till I was at my dad's house, and then I would go do stuff with people when I was at my dad's.
Gotcha.
So I didn't have very much of a social life as a teenager.
Gotcha. Did had you drank or smoked weed or anything before you graduated high school?
Yeah, but it wasn't a problem yet.
Well, I'm more so curious of the circumstance because you have friends?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, yeah.
Well, I more mean like people that you trust as a teenager. You know what I mean? Like when you were in high school where somebody's like, "Hey, why don't you sneak out and we'll go do XYZ?" Were these like dependable friends or was it just that like you were trying to uh become one of the
I think
gang?
I was just trying to be cool more or trying to fit in. Like, when I smoked weed for the first time, I literally just wanted to know what it was like, and I hit up 2 random guys who I knew were, like, potheads, and they smoked me up, and then I went to my dad's house. But the other part to that, which could go down a whole 'nother rabbit hole, is I had a step-uncle who was providing things to me
Mm.
as a minor. So he probably was the one who bought me my first alcohol and I just remember, like, a couple times I, like, drank before school and, like, I was all drunk in, like, Spanish class, but nobody caught me or anything, but yeah, my drinking didn't really progress until my 20s. 19, 20, 21, and then it started to get
This was
bad.
all the way back in 1920?
Yeah, 19 I'm over 100 years old now.
Um, at what age, or if at any age, did you start to recognize maybe I have depression or maybe I have anxiety?
Probably 6th or 7th grade, started, like, cutting myself, and I I used to think I was, like, a pussy because I wouldn't cut myself hard enough, and, like, I would just do little slits just to see what it's like.
That's so funny. I'm the same way, or I was
Yeah,
the same way.
but I just remember being so angry, and I as a teenager, I was trying to be somebody else, and I listened to rap music and, like, hung up pictures of, like, hip hop clothing and brands all over my walls, and I was obsessed with Lil Wayne,
Oh,
and I
dude.
used to, like, type like I was a thug, like I talked like a gangster. So I went through this whole phase of, like, trying to be somebody I wasn't, and I think I was doing it to try to rebel or, like, piss my mom off.
Sure.
So yeah, as a teenager, and I just remember I went to a very white school, and I hung out with people of other races, and I was called a N-word lover, and I never fit in, and people would, like, in middle school, like, "Oh, do you shop at the Goodwill? Like, does your mom get your clothes at the Goodwill?" And being called a slut on the school bus even though I was a virgin still, and high school and middle school was terrible time for me. When people are like, "Oh, I loved high school and homecoming queen and blah blah blah," like, it was terrible.
Dude, ha I still remember when high school was done, I felt so
Relieved.
fucking happy, like, oh my god. I was so psyched to never have to go
Yeah,
back there again.
yeah.
And yeah, I feel like there's this pattern of, and you're of an age, at least where, like, maybe they started to talk about mental health at school, but there really wasn't anybody who knew what the fuck they were doing. Like teachers who thought, "Oh, I just need to be there, and as long as I listen, then it'll save their life." And it's like, not all mental illnesses are like that. Like, unfortunately,
No.
some of us need actual help, and just saying that you can call me anytime isn't gonna fix anything, unfortunately.
No, and I feel like even my mom, like, made us go to therapy for our stepdad and stuff, and I just remember she would pick these, like, Christian counselors, and, like, I just remember lying, all like, never telling what really was going on, and in the meantime, my step-uncle is sneaking out of my bedroom at 2 in the morning to go hang out with him, and
I was so concerned about that when you said that he was buying you stuff. I was like, "God damn it, I bet he wanted
Yeah.
to get involved."
So, um no, I lost my train of thought. That's a whole other
Well, but
can
I
of
mean
worms.
that
I never
mental health
used
and
therapy.
religion
Yeah.
typically don't mesh well.
No, and every time I was in therapy, I lied, and I never told the truth of what really was going on.
Because was your mom there with you?
Some of it she was, but some of it was just one-on-one with the therapist, but I just remember not wanting to be there.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to establish trust, especially when, if a parent brings you, then it feels like whoever you talk to is gonna report right back to your
Exactly,
parent, and it's
and
like,
at the
what's the fucking
time,
point?
I was in a relationship basically with my step-uncle.
God damn it, I knew it!
So why would I be honest about anything? Because it would ruin the one happy thing I think I have in my life, but it's actually not a happy thing.
Dang it. So how old were you?
14
Ugh.
to 23.
Step uncle seems cool, right? And does cool things and treats you like an adult, or speaks to you like an adult, whereas everybody else doesn't. And then at some point is like, if you want a beer, I can go get you one.
Pretty much it started with me falling asleep on his lap watching a movie because I was so comfortable and safe with him. And then I woke up and he was touching where he shouldn't be touching. And he used that to flip it and say, if you let me touch you or do this to you, I'll give you X, Y, and Z. So, and I came from no money. So, gifts, things, clothes, money, shopping trips, like going cool places, going out to eat. He essentially was a boyfriend who spoiled me.
Yeah.
And in return, he would have my body. So, but I never had sex with him. That's that's where for the longest time I felt like I didn't go through anything. I felt like
Oh,
I was a prostitute. And I was like, this is your fault. You're letting him do these things to you. You never have even had sex with him. So they talk about PTSD and I'm like, mine isn't like that. I wasn't like raped in an alleyway. I was like groomed
sure.
to thinking he was my best friend.
That goes back to like we were talking about before the, the podcast started. Is like there's some things that like you get that they're fucked up, but for some reason it doesn't land that it was a traumatic event,
No.
and or that something was taken from you. Um, because yeah, like I said, or like you were saying, like you're getting things in return. So obviously this is your choice.
And I would spend my free time with him, like a friendship. Like when I was in college, people were going and doing college things, and I would go spend evenings with him. He's the one who, like supported my modeling dreams. I dropped out of school, out of college, and I was going to be a model. And he supported all that. And he took pictures of me, even as a minor. And so it was a whole different it wasn't like a sexual abuse thing where I was being, like, hit and forced into things. It was more of a he swooped in and groomed me, and we had a relationship. It took me for the longest time to even tell anyone that it happened
Yeah.
because, he made me think that I was the he told me I would go to jail,
Whoa.
and I was a prostitute, basically.
Oh, because you were.
And
Oh,
then he's
wow.
like, "If you ever tell anyone, I'll make your life a living hell," and, like and then he's like, "Our relationship has it was brought to me by God,
Oh
and
no.
it's made me closer to my wife."
Wow.
So I don't like church or religion.
Yeah, I mean that like I was saying before, like religion being integrated into anything is not good because religion is something to be sought out, I feel like. Like if you really think that you need that deeper connection with something other than yourself and you feel like you have some type of faith, then yeah, go nuts. But keep that shit separate from the other stuff. People have this tough time of like the concept of shutting religion out of certain things, but you could just say, "Oh, thank God for therapy. Thank God for, rehab centers." Like
Right.
just imagine that he put it in place for you. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't have to mean that you're spitting in the face of this deity or whatever.
Mhm.
So I mean, it just we already live in such a shameful society. You put on top of that this
Religion, shame.
holy entity. You let that thing down, the spiral is way, way worse. 3 of the guys that I was in treatment with are dead, unfortunately, and the first one to go was hands down the most religious out of the people that I met, like, to the point of being a leader at this church, for 3 years before he ended up having to check himself into rehab. But yeah, just lost it and relapsed, I think within like a month of leaving, and then had like a shootout, and
Jeez.
it was just a fucking
Yeah.
insane thing. But that when I had heard about that, it was like, well, yeah, of course you're gonna go completely nuts when you're like, oh, I'm not good enough for God. I'm not good enough for anything after that. If I
Right.
can't, you know, so that whole thing is just so fucky, and especially when you're young and like so if you do bad, right? If you do bad in high school, oh, you fail high school. That's okay. You get another chance. If you fail God, oh no, you're going to hell. And it's
Mhm.
forever.
Mhm.
And it's like, dude, the consequences are so fucking high.
Or if you have sex, you're tainted and
Yeah.
stained.
People just don't realize what they're putting on you pressure wise, when they want you to come to Jesus or any of that shit. It's like, you're not just, it doesn't help and work for everybody. Like, I'm dealing with enough right now. What I need is somebody to say, do you want to go to Perkins and get coffee and pancakes? Or, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I need somebody who's actually here.
Right.
Like, if I'm incapable of making this spiritual connection, then I need something now in the
Mhm.
meantime. And I hope that whatever that now is a healthy thing. And then maybe, yeah, maybe down the line I reconnect with my religion and everything's better. But those things have just got to be separate. It I've I feel like it never works
No.
because for the people that it does work, they go way the fuck overboard and they're super religious. And now they're like, I have to convert the masses because look what it did for
And
me.
it's yeah, and it's disgusting to me at least. I don't
That's
know.
gross.
Yeah, I identify as spiritual and I don't identify with any religion. And in my mentality, they're all religion is essentially all the same thing. They're all worshiping something higher. And like why can't you worship a tree when you're out on a hike or look at the sunset? Why can't an EDM concert where you feel like your soul leaves your body and you're just really absorbing the music, why can't that be church?
A lot of like outspoken atheists um have said that really the big thing is community, and church provides that at least on a once a week basis, depending on what that church does.
Right.
So you're having that sense of, I'm not alone,
Mhm.
and I don't know what the meaning of life is. I don't know if I'm doing right or wrong. I need a helping hand. I need somebody to say, nah, you shouldn't do that, because I'm incapable of doing that on my own. Yeah, I mean, if you need a set of guidelines to not murder or rape, like, you need other help. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
um, so yeah, I mean, because I get that argument a lot too. Is like, well, if you don't believe in anything, then how come? What's stopping you from going and stealing a car? And it's like, well, I'll get fucking arrested. Like, the world, if God didn't exist, like, and everybody figured it out at the same time, nothing would change. Everything stays the same.
Right.
And the world, like you were saying, is so amazing as it is. The fact that we're cognitively able to process the world that we do, this room on its own is
Very cool.
insane. There are artificial lights,
Yeah.
um,
Soundproofing things.
well, I mean, temperature control, climate control in a closed space like this.
Yep.
The fact that we're going to be able to watch back and see ourselves, talking to each other and hear it in these, all of this shit exists nowhere else in the, like, what is it, like 95% of the world or whatever. Um, it's just animals in their own pods. Like, it's bonkers that we get to
Mhm.
process all this stuff. Like we were talking about before, the fact that we get to live with animals, insane. There's animals, creatures that can light themselves up, literally flick a switch and voila, I am a nightlight now. Like, that's
Or
crazy.
change colors like a chameleon.
Or change colors. Yeah. Or I mean, there's a jellyfish that can never die. It regenerates.
I did not know that.
Oh, it is
That's crazy.
insane. So yeah, like there's all this insanely existence just on planet Earth is bonkers.
See, and that to me, that's God.
Yeah, man, let
Like,
it
or
be.
a higher whatever. Like, we're just measly little humans. The universe is a freaking wild place.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, I yeah, just that if anybody's on the fence about like where their faith is at, doesn't matter. Like
no.
life is crazy enough as it is. Like it can be whatever you want it to be. And that's just fine because we might all be in a simulation anyways. So who fucking cares?
Time isn't real.
Yeah. Um Now we kind of zip zapped all over the
Yep,
place.
that's
My
fine.
bad. But going back to so high school happens.
Mhm.
Super fun. Um Once you get out of high school, did you have goals of going to college for like did you want to be a dentist or
I basically did some tours of places in high school still, and I had no freaking idea what I wanted to be a model,
Mm,
and I listened to so much rap music that, I thought I could be a model and be a stripper, and basically, there was a college I wanted to go to the U of M,
mhm.
but my mom, like, talked me out of it, so I didn't get to go where I wanted to go. And I ended up doing, like, some generals at North Hennepin, and then I ended up at St. Cloud State, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no, like, direction, and she's like, "Well, you're good with little kids." And I'm like, "Yeah, I like kids." And so I started to be a teacher
Oh, really?
for elementary education, and my heart wasn't in it. And I was like, "This is freaking dumb. I don't need to be in school." And then I dropped out.
Okay.
And then I've had a series of multiple other epiphanies of career
Oh, sure.
changes. Like, I love animals. I'm going to be a vet tech. And I made it like 3 days in and I saw a dead cat in a body bag and I quit. And then I moved in with my aunt and uncle
Wait,
temporarily. What?
which aunt and uncle?
Oh, not the
Okay,
not the
okay.
step uncle. Um, and they were like, "You can either work full time and you don't have to pay rent, or you can go back to school." So I just was like, "Oh, well, I like doing my makeup," and was like, "I guess I'll go to cosmetology school." So I go to cosmetology school, and it was the same thing where I, like, did really well, and I could have made something of it, but when I was still actively drinking, I never would finish things.
Oh, okay.
I would start things, and the negative voices in my head would make me quit. I'd always find a way to weasel out of something.
Oh, because it's not gonna work out anyways.
And I'd be like, "You're never good at this. You're not good at anything. See, look at all these other people. They're way better than you. You can't do this. You can't. You're terrible." And then somebody would like come try to direct me and help me. "See, look, you can't do this." Like, and it would get so bad that I would just quit and I'd go back to waitressing.
Mm,
And that's what I've done for the last 10 years. I'd start a thing and I'd get my voices in my head and I'd give up. And waitressing, I was comfortable and I made quick, easy money and I always would fall back on it. So since I've quit drinking, I'm actually staying on the track and fighting. I still have them all the time, every single day. Like coming to do this, I'm like, "You can't be on a podcast. Nobody wants to hear you talk." Like, just like there's a demon in my head that's always fighting me. But now the difference is I have more willpower and more strength, and I recognize it and I can fight it better. So, like my EMT thing, it took me years to just pass the test. I like I signed up for a course when I was in California to be an EMT, and my boyfriend was all proud of me, and I was like, "I'm gonna do this," and then I quit. And then finally I came back here in, like, 2019, signed up for an online class. So I literally took this course, like, 2 or 3 years ago, and then because of COVID and everything, it kinda got pushed out and I got more time. But if I would not have passed this test in March when I took it, I would have had to redo a whole 'nother program because I waited that long to take the test. And I kept, because all I cared about was partying and drinking.
Right.
So I was never I had no goals and no I was like, "Yeah, I wanna do that," but I would never take the action. So this has been a long time coming to even get a job and have my certification, and, like, it's wild to me how much has happened just in a span of a year,
Mm.
of almost a year. I'm not there yet, but almost a year of no drinking, and, like, I've done a complete career change and passed this huge test. I've moved twice, like, you know, I've kind of fallen out of therapy because of my crazy schedule and stuff, but I have therapy next week, but I've been more actively working on, like, positive affirmations and just, like, being kinder to myself and listening to my body and paying attention to the universe throwing me signs and stuff like that. And when I was drinking, I was just oblivious to
Yeah.
everything, you know? So I'm crazy. It's crazy to me because, like, 5 years from now, where am I going to be
Oh, yeah.
if I stay sober?
Well, and I always tell people, like, sobriety, because you did cold turkey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
just
just went on
stopped.
your own.
Yep. I
Congrats.
tried AA years ago. I've dabbled,
I mean,
but I hated it.
it's funny, like, there's still this weird, like, alcoholics are better than drug addicts for some reason. Ours is legal, so obviously, and we have generations of noblemen who were alcoholics as well, so
Well, and it's frustrating. AA, what really bothers me is there's a part where it talks about those with mental illness or those who don't work the program the way it's supposed to be worked. They can't do it. The language in, like, the big book and the way they talk, it's so, like, demeaning.
Mhm.
And it was founded by two rich white doctors.
Yeah.
Why men like doctors? Like, and nothing has changed. It's all stayed the same.
Yeah, who, by the way, did LSD to try
Right.
to like, dude. Yeah, these were 100%.
And it's almost culty in a sense, and it
Yeah, man.
for people with social anxiety, I have good days and bad days. I'm half introvert, half extrovert. So I can be very talkative like right now and be fine, but other days I'm terrified to even go to the grocery store. So, like, for me to walk into a meeting and the meeting's fine, but then afterwards everybody comes up to you and it's like, "Get away from me." Like, "Do you need my phone number? Here's the phone list. You should come to have coffee with us." And I'm just like, "I don't even know if I wanna be here right now." And now I'm getting overwhelmed. So, like, it's just it's not for me. If
Yeah.
it works for other people, I'm very happy,
Well,
but
I mean, it works for yeah, it works for some people, but I mean, the other thing is, you know, the relapse rate is insane. It's you have a 5 to 7% chance of making it out without relapse. And for some reason
that's
we're
crazy.
blaming you instead of the program that is so clearly failing millions of people. Like, they take millions of dollars every year from people who want a better life and are just, like, spitting the same shit that was being said back in the 50s. Like, how is that supposed to help people, especially when technology has a massive part of the, w- um, the list of triggers, because it can be now an advertisement on your phone, or the people that you follow on social media, you see them out drinking and you're like, fuck, I kind of wish that I was there doing that.
Mhm.
There's so many more things. And yeah, for some reason, all of these treatment facilities blame the addict instead of looking at,
Society.
well, society, but also their own program.
Right.
If a school had a 5 to 7% chance of their students graduating, like you come in and you're like, you might graduate,
But
that
probably not.
that place would get shut down. Like, or if yeah, it's so frustrating. And
I'm
and it
glad we agree on that. I didn't know if I was throwing it out there and you're gonna be like, "You need to go to
no, no,
AA."
no. I don't go to AA. I did NA for a little bit, but then I just started doing this like so quickly after I got out of treatment, that these are my AA meetings, these are my NA meetings. This is my therapy, like, and the reason that I do it this way is because we learn together. Like, I'm
Right.
not any better than you. I don't have sure, like, I've been through maybe some things that you haven't, but you've also been through things that I haven't been through. So like, it's it's a chance for me to learn how to better relate to people, but also a check to say, this is why I'm staying sober. You know what I mean?
The first thing I remember one of the first things I remember doing when I quit, I've tried quitting many times before, but this time actually stuck. But I went to Barnes and Noble and I went to the whatever section it was and I looked for alcoholic memoirs.
Oh.
So I have like 5 or 6 different books that I've read about people who quit drinking and not I think most of them are all alcoholics, but some of them are just there's one that's pretty famous and it's I don't remember what it's called, but it's like the radical choice to quit drinking in a society that worships it or
Mm.
something like that. And it's just it talks about society and how everything is celebrated with drinking and you're not going to have a fun life if you don't drink and we're almost brainwashed as a culture. Like and I almost think they do it to dumb us down so they can do more things to us. That if I get really conspiracy
Well, I mean, that's
theory.
capitalism, like, in general. There
Yeah,
is a whole rabbit hole for that. The other thing, though, is that we still it is easier to hand someone a drink than to agree to sit down and
talk about
listen.
their
Yeah, yeah,
problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do that back and forth, because, it makes people so uncomfortable. And I just think that's outrageous. Like, we understand that there are addicts in the world,
Mhm.
and we understand that majority of them get there by unfortunate circumstance. They're unable to deal with XYZ. Their family life was this or that. People don't do that self-reflection to go like, am I, like, having a drink at the end of a bad work day, right? People are like, oh, work fucking sucked, I'm gonna go drink. That right there is a cue to say, you do not have the tools needed in order to process what happened at work, or you don't have the support system in order to kind of vent or whatever you need to. And that's what you really need, is people who are willing to listen, a support group, community, whatever, like,
Or to take a freaking walk or
or
go to
take
the
a
gym.
goddamn walk. Yeah, there's these all point to things like you're saying, like, people, like, it's associated with having fun. You're depressed, let's go have some fun. And that's clearly done by drinking or smoking weed.
Well, that's the thing. I think I had the hardest time too quitting was like, what am I gonna miss out on? And truthfully, I haven't missed out on anything. I've been a part of more things because I haven't been drinking. So,
I'm more of a hermit, but it's because I realized, like, how much more I prefer. like just hanging out with my wife watching dumb TV or like, watching her. I don't know. There's these mundane things that now you can enjoy. And I don't know. It's sobriety is just being able to look at things with a clear head. That's it. It's not a magical fix. Just because you're sober, you're still gonna have to pay bills. You're still
Right.
gonna have to
You're still gonna have to put your cat down,
put your cat
go
down.
to your great uncle's funeral,
Yeah.
you know, have the terrifying start of a new job.
Yeah. All those things. But you're gonna be able to, instead of getting drunk and being like, I'm gonna call my boss and tell him to fucking go fuck himself, you're gonna be like, man, I do not like the way that they're treating me. I should go to HR and have a conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like these,
Yeah.
it's just, you just have a clearer head. That's it. But you still
Well,
have to do a bunch of work.
and being a hermit, I think people's energies and like just giving your time to people, you need to watch who you spend your time with and who
Mm-hmm.
you give your energy to, because if you start giving it to the wrong people, you're just going to slip right back in.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's, if you're in my life and I want to spend time with you, it's because I really want to spend time with you, Like I'm not going to just, like before, I would just get drunk with a random stranger at the bar,
Oh yeah.
and then wake up at their house like, where the fuck am I? That's always fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not so bad being a hermit.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm a hermit, but I'm also like, it's I have a job where I'm talking to fuckload of
Yeah,
people all day
right.
long. So I mean, I say hermit, but that's just because I don't know. I don't do as much. But the stuff that I was going out and doing, majority of it drinking was associated with it. So yeah, getting stuck in the cities because I'm too drunk to drive and shit like that. Or yeah, I mean, I'm capable of doing these things and being able to drive myself home. Like those should not be mutually exclusive. Like if you feel like you need something, like my wife and I have like bought tickets to a concert and started driving and been like, you know what, I actually don't really want to go. And then just turn
Mhm.
around. So if you have a bad energy or a bad sense, vibe, whatever for the thing, don't be like, oh, I'll get through it by drinking. Just don't do the thing.
Yep.
Or if everything feels like that, well, then talk to somebody about why everything feels like you don't want to do it.
Right.
Maybe you have some sad sads. Maybe you have a case of
Sad, sad.
the anxiety.
Anxiety.
Oh, dude, I wonder if there's an anxiety.
I'm sure there
There's
is.
gotta be, right?
Stuffed animal that you
Yeah.
squish.
A squish.
Sensory. It's nice and soft. You rub it on your face.
So so that conversation with your dad, that was the catalyst for getting sober?
It was a accumulation of things, but it really, I was at a point where I was like losing everything. I had a best friend I had just become friends with like a year and a half in, and our relationship was going to be done pretty much because of the last two times I hung out with her when I was still drinking. I showed up blacked out to a concert we were going to go to. She had to bring me home and then repay to get back into the concert.
Ugh.
And then we went to the state fair together, and her boyfriend were a new couple, and they were holding hands and, like cuddling. Nothing disrespectful, but my jealous, drunk self, like, was being rude to them and, like, acting disgusted. And she was like, Bree, I think it's time for you to go home. And I basically took off running. And then I'm sitting behind some building next to an air conditioner in rocks crying because I'm like wasted, and I'm in the midway and I go buy tickets to ride rides by myself, but then end up giving them to some mom with kids. And then I'm can't figure out how to work my phone to call an Uber, so I have to call my cousin to come save me in St. Paul because I don't know where I am. So like I was starting to just lose. I was gonna lose that friend. Then the last time I drank, I blacked out at Thanksgiving, told my mom to fuck off, drank my grandma's husband's, like, brandy, was sneaking shots in between things, like, going in the kitchen, trying to hide, and, like, just made a fool of myself, and I was sick the next day. I don't count my sobriety until into the afternoon the next day because that morning I was still
Mm,
sloshed and I was barfing my guts out because I felt so sick. I was forcing myself to throw up
mm.
because I was never really a puker drinking.
Sure.
The only time I would puke is the nausea the next day. I'd do it to feel better. And then I'd be like, well, I can get going again, you know? And I was never an everyday drinker. I was always a like every 2 to 3 days. So then I would be like, "Well, I'm not an alcoholic because 'cause I'm not drinking every day." But it's when I would drink, I couldn't turn it off.
Sure.
So, even into blacking out, like, I'd be blacked out, I wouldn't even be there anymore, but I'm still standing up, moving around, taking shots as I'm blacked out.
Of course.
And people would look like the next day, they'd be like, "You were drunk then? I thought you were sober." And I'm like, "That's terrifying
Yeah.
that you can be that obliterated." And I'm small. But, like, when I got my DUI, I blew a .238.
Phew.
And, like, I had a therapist tell me once, like, I should have been dead probably. And that's the thing, I'd black out and I'd just keep going. So it's like a miracle that I never died.
Yeah. When you said people didn't realize that you were drunk,
Mhm.
that is a scary place to live. Because your body has decided, all right, because there's a subconscious part of your brain. I forget if we've talked about this or not,
Mm-mm.
but I say this almost every episode because there's new listeners. But your brain has a 3-step process for doing most things. And the subconscious midbrain had to create a reward system for thousands of years ago for us to go do basic shit like drink water, eat food, take a shit, whatever. So that's where dopamine comes from.
Mhm.
And like I said, it was meant to be like, oh, thank God, they drank water, they did the thing, so we can keep on living. Um, so to the midbrain, dopamine is survival juice, is what it equates to, because
Mhm.
you're doing things that help you survive.
Mhm.
So midbrain says, hey, step 2, we need dum dum to go drink water. So step 2 says, all right, where are we going to get the water? How are we going to get it? And then step 3 is the action part, going and getting the thing. Um, when addicts introduce substances, that dopamine is sometimes up to five times the amount that you were getting before.
Right.
Um, and so your subconscious is like, "Whoa, we're fucking killing it. We're surviving the shit out of this day." Like, because the dopamine. Obviously, that means we're surviving. That's what that means.
Yep.
So eventually, it's so convinced that this is helping us survive that it says skip step 2 and go straight to action. So if we don't have the dopamine level that we need, skip number 2 and go straight to picking up the bottle, buying weed, whatever. Um, and so that's why, like, there are addicts who will be like, you wake up feeling like absolute dog shit, and you're like, I'm not drinking tonight, and you absolutely drank that night. Like you were convinced, like I do not.
Or you wake up, puke a few times forcefully, forcing yourself, and then continue to drink.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's that like objective part of. Um, oh, and the other thing that I was gonna say, so your subconscious will also adapt to say, like, okay, when we seem drunk, people get in the way of us getting substance in order to have the survival juice. So we need to learn how to present ourselves so that we can keep using without anybody bothering us.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so that's where I was at. My body was like, okay, I came up with a regimen for like I know that I can drink X amount and not get blackout drunk. Um, Still be able to handle my words and all these things. Um, and then I started to learn the signs before the spins.
Mhm.
So I would get a little thing and go, oh, if I drink any more, because 5 minutes from now, I'm already going to feel a little bit more drunk. So if I hold off, then I can avoid this thing. So it was just like, yeah, how do we keep this vessel going to be able to continue to use at optimal strength?
Or if I do a bunch of cocaine, I won't black out.
100%.
It's a win-win. But then I need the alcohol to pass out because now I can't sleep.
Dude, when I learned that mixing Red Bull and alcohol was almost equivalent to doing cocaine, I was like, "Wha-
Oh, I drink vodka Red Bulls all the time.
yeah, so I'm doing fucking liquid cocaine
Mm,
forever now."
yeah.
So yeah, my other thing was that like I would always have to have a decent amount of caffeine to make sure that I didn't get sleepy because when you close your eyes, a lot of times that's when the spins start. I'm not trying to like coach anybody on how to be a better addict. Like this is just
Here, this is the steps.
When did you start taking your mental health seriously?
I went through that really bad breakup like 4 or 5 years ago, and I went into therapy a few different times, and when I was out in California, I also finally went to the police and reported my step-uncle when I came home one of the times, but I didn't do it like, I didn't so, I guess you could count that because finally was coming out and, like, reporting him. So it started, but I was still lying to my therapist about my drinking.
Mm,
I was never honest. I would drink and not go to my appointments and lie I'm having car problems and whatever lie there was, I told it to not go to therapy because I was hungover. So, like, I was trying to take it seriously, but I wasn't.
sure.
So, I guess within the last year, honestly, because I was trying before, but I wasn't really doing it.
Were you ever um professionally diagnosed with anything?
When I was little, it was OCD. And then when I was 26, 27, I don't remember when it was, I went to the doctor to try to get Adderall
Mm,
because I was abusing that too once in a while. Um, so I went and had a bunch of psych testing done to get the Adderall, and they're like, "Oh, you don't have ADHD. You actually have PTSD, anxiety, and depression." And I was like, "Well, I guess I found that out." So then I was doing it to try to get other drugs. I was like, "Well, maybe I'll get like Xanax or something like that prescribed." Um, but yeah, they're like, "You just have PTSD and depression and anxiety." So I was diagnosed with those too. And then yeah, the therapist I'm seeing now, she said I don't necessarily have PTSD as bad as some other people, but I do have depression, anxiety, substance abuse disorder, you know,
hmm.
those issues.
PTSD is such a tricky thing because yeah, I mean, like we've said already, like you don't realize how fucked up a thing is until you hear somebody else say it back to you. Like like I was telling you the thing that happened with when I was a kid. Like,
Yeah. Well, and then I was diagnosed too with PTSD after I did all that psych testing. And she told me what it is, where you get like flashbacks and panic attacks and all these things. And I'm like, I don't get any of those things. But then so then I would discredit it. I'm like, well, what happened to you really wasn't that bad. And like, because you don't have PTSD, like they say you should have it. It's like, what?
yeah, yeah. I've been through a lot of stuff, and it's weird that those things don't trigger. like the most intense things, right? So I've had 2 suicide attempts, and when I think about those things or talk about those, it doesn't, like, send me spiraling, but thinking about stealing a piece of chocolate out of a kid's hand when I was in high school and her boyfriend yelling at me, that will send me into a panic attack. So it's weird that, like, these little things, I think it's just the wanting to being called out for not being normal sends me way more into a panic than thinking about the traumatic stuff that I've actually been through.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, I'm curious in your situation if it's like it just more bums you out when you think about that stuff.
I will go into a pity party
Mhm.
and I will spiral into society and life's not fair, America sucks, nothing's gonna get anywhere, you're not gonna get anywhere. So it's more of not like
Catastrophizing.
triggers, but yeah, catastrophizing and making my life sound like a shithole and feeling sorry for myself. And you didn't get the normal college experience that everyone got. You got ripped off. You got dealt a shitty hand at life. So when I was drinking, I'd think all those things and then feel even worse.
Mhm.
Now at least I can try to combat them. But when I was drinking, it was just a constant beating yourself up. And then I was in a series of relationships where they would use things against me. Like my last ex was horrible, and he would say, your family knew you were being molested. They probably just let it happen. And you're going to be poor the rest of your life. You're a loser.
Hmm.
You're going to be at the bar when you're 50 years old and be alone. So all those things still play into my head.
Yeah.
And that's been another part of getting sober is trying to fight all those away because they're still there.
Well, and I mean, that's the generational trauma that I was talking about too, is like, unfortunately, when it seems like you're destined or fated to have, this shit repeat itself. Um, yeah, man, it's just that helplessness that you feel. Oof, my goof.
You almost feel like a kid again. I don't know
Oh,
how
I
I'm
know
trying to
exactly what you're
word it.
saying. An
Yeah.
authoritative figure who is they talk to you in a way to where their body language, the pitch of their voice, all these things just equate to putting you in a corner and putting you in timeout and being like, there's no fucking way you're going to be able to do anything. Look at, dude, you threw up all over the living room. You piece of shit. You're going to be a piece of shit forever. Like, just the confidence that somebody, if they are confidently making you feel like shit, then yeah, you're going to be like, oh, yeah.
I remember one of my exes got into a fight. We got into a fight. I was horrible too. And that I would justify their behavior because I was like, well, I'm drinking behind their back and I'm cheating on them and I'm doing these things. So it's okay they treat me like this. But I remember we got into a fight and I had mentioned wanting to not be alive. And he basically was like, I don't have time for suicide bullshit and like walked out of the room. So, like, I think that's been a big part of my trauma too, is just those relationships I was in,
Yeah.
like, and not being with people like that anymore.
I think that women just need to start dating women
Yeah, I've tried, yeah.
because I feel like there's so much more relatability and finding those moments of like the way that society beats you down, you can trauma bond and be like, oh my God, finally somebody who understands how horrible everybody is.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just very, it's funny. This podcast is not meant to be the shit on all men podcast, but
Just
just fucking
shit
happens,
on
dude.
yourself.
Yeah, which is funny is like I'll have people be like, "Well, you're a fucking dude." And I'm like, "I know, and I fucking sucked for a long time." Like, you either gotta get your shit together or we all just suck.
Yeah.
So, all cops are bad. All cis why honky guys are bad.
Sis why honky
Cis
guys.
why honkies.
Sis so honky.
Um, when it comes to those relationships, like your relationship going to California, was he from California or how did you guys end up there?
I basically jumped from one relationship to the next. So I was still getting over the one ex, and I don't necessarily want to say I even was over him because I had gotten a DUI and he was giving me rides, but he'd use me for sex. Well, then I go on a dating app and I meet another guy and I start hanging out with him. Well, he drinks like I drink. So our relationship was a blast at the time. We got wasted together all the time. He was cool with it for a while, and then he was like, "Well, you gotta stop drinking." So then I would quit, and then we're on vacation in Mexico together at an all-inclusive, and I was still drinking, but he basically we had no conversation of, "Hey, my resume is on other websites for other jobs. I could get a job offer somewhere else and move." I thought he was just gonna stay in Minnesota, like, he seemed like he had a good job. I had no idea, there was no discussion, and one day, he's basically like, "Oh, yeah, so I have an interview with Apple for basically my dream job," and he's like, "But it's out in California," and I'm like, "Did you even think about me?" I didn't say that because I was a pushover and, but I was like, "Well, I can't go with you." And it was this thing of then he comes to my house one day and he's like, "You have to come with me."
What the fuck?
"I'll only go for a couple of years and I'll build my resume and then I'll come back home with you."
Cool.
So he manipulated me into coming, and I think he needed me he used me to have that job because it was one of the most stressful times probably of his life, and I cooked.
Oh.
I cooked and I cleaned and helped him get through it, I think. I was definitely in love with him, but he was a narcissistic asshole, and, so, yeah, I was like, "Well, I'll come with you." So for months, I was like, "I'm not going with you," and then I changed my mind and I was going with. And then it turned into one of the best times of my life, even though it was horrible.
Yeah.
Because he had money and we could do all these fun things that I never had gotten to do.
Mm.
And we got to go on weekend vacations and trips to like go hiking in the mountains and go to Yosemite and go to all these concerts together and go out to eat all the time. Like, oh, we can go try this place today and buying all new furniture together because Apple gave them all this money to buy
Oh, sure.
furniture and I had never gotten to do that with anybody, and I loved every second of all that, but it was toxic as hell at the same time, and, I still, I drove past where he used to live in downtown Minneapolis yesterday, and I started crying, and it's been, 5 years.
Well, I mean, it's like being stuck at a shitty job that pays well. That you're like, that I have to keep working here to in order to have money to distract myself from how much I hate my job. It's a vicious cycle and you have to break free of it.
And well, my family would keep things would happen and I would be like, "I know this isn't right." And then I'd get on my independent woman shit and I'd be like, "I deserve better and I know I do." But then I'd then we'd go on a trip together or do something fun, and I'd be like, "I don't wanna leave this."
Mhm.
And then I moved back to Minnesota, and I can't afford to do any of the cool stuff we used to do, so then I'm like, "Your life sucks." And I believed all the things he kept telling me, like, "You're gonna be a loser," and all this stuff. So, that's still a struggle, and I think that's also part of the reason I drank so much too, along with my step-uncle and all that other
Oh,
stuff,
yeah, a little step uncle stuff. A little stunkle.
Stuncle.
Um, I used to say that sobriety was a curse because you do remember the fun aspects of it, and you do remember, like, all of these things, and then your brain is like, "God, why can't I be normal? Why can't I be one of those normal people that a drink happens once a month or whatever?" Like, these situations where how come I have 0 control, like, no moderation, control or anything like that?
You think you're weak.
Yeah. There's something wrong with me,
Yeah,
or
I'm tainted.
yeah, or just I don't wanna even know. I wish I could forget all that shit so that I don't even know what I'm missing or remember what I was potentially missing, whatever. I still don't know why people feel like they have to have this pedestal. I don't even know if that's the right word. But for whatever reason, they have to let you know how good they're doing and why you'll never get there. I don't know if that's like they were told as a kid that they were never going to amount to anything and they think that it's some type of motivational thing. Like if I shit on them enough, then they're going to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. I don't know what the fuck it is. But more and more, I mean, I feel like nobody responds well to that shit. And it just it doesn't work so often. I don't get why it keeps happening. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I also don't I can't wrap my head around wanting to make people that you love feel bad. It it just doesn't connect with me. And it never really has, which is I think part of why my codependency got so bad like as I got older. Because I would watch all these authoritative figures shit on these kids and I just it just hit me that I was like, you don't have to do that. There's no reason for it. Which would get me into trouble all the time because I was just a little kid. But I still had this giant head, and they were like, "What's this
Big head.
bobblehead motherfucker coming up to yell at me for?" Um, but yeah, I mean, with relationships, it sucks because you're an adult and you think I have my shit together, but then this person is able to pull you out of that and be like, "No, you're not. You're not an adult. You don't know what you're doing. You need me or you need church or whatever to tell you how to be an adult because you aren't doing it."
Well, and it becomes like a drug addiction too, where I was searching for my validation from him and every relationship I was in. I was waiting for that next hit of dopamine where I need you in my life. I love you. You're so special. Like when
Yeah.
he would be nice to me, I'm waiting for that. Or when he would look at me and I'd see the look in his eyes. Like I was looking and waiting for that to feel something good about myself.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't getting those things, then I'd feel bad about myself. And that's why I stayed as long as I did. And I ignored all the red flags in the beginning because I was like, wow, he's actually sticking around and like I'm actually having fun with this guy. And that was the hardest part was I had never laughed so hard with somebody. And so even though it was so toxic and he was so not the person I would see myself with now, like with the same values and stuff, there was something in him that I saw that I thought had potential and I thought maybe I could fix him.
Yeah. Or that they're just going through something right now and they're just stressed out because
Right.
their job is this and we live in a completely different state. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can make excuses for as to why the relationship. I mean, on paper, if if my wife were to describe me up until, 3, 4 years ago, I don't think anybody would be like, "Oh yeah, stick it out."
What a great guy.
No, that dude sucks. That's why I say I'm lucky all the time. Like it's just luck. I don't deserve any of this shit. You know what I mean? Like I get that, but at the same time, I recognize that fuck, I'm glad I'm here though.
That's what I wonder is what is it that clicks for people where it actually sticks, where you actually do stay away from drinking? Like, what I wanna know the psychology of why it worked this time because I tried so many other times, but for some reason, this time it clicked, and it doesn't click for everybody,
No.
and I see it in my EMT job. I get a constant reminder of why I'm not gonna keep drinking, but not everybody sees the light or, like, there's a thing my grandma sent me, and it's from an AA book. Some of the stuff is actually good,
Of course.
but it was a passage about the other people in your life who are still suffering. It's about crossing the bridge and how they're trying to cross the bridge, but they're not. I I would have to read it to you, but, like, it's exactly that. It's like, I wish I could take just a chunk of what I feel now and implant it into somebody because you don't think you can get there, and I totally was there. I was like, "This is my life. This is how I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Something stupid. I'm gonna be drinking, I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna get brought into sex trafficking because 'cause I'm wandering around downtown drunk." Like, it's a miracle I'm alive still. And, yeah, we are lucky because not everybody gets out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, and I mean, 2 weeks into treatment, I thought I was like, I fucking got this. And then that same day, the whole relapse statistics started getting thrown around,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I here if I'm fucking doomed the second that I walk out that
Right.
door? I met this guy who was in there for his seventh time, which is insane. And I was just like so fucking over it that I was like, why try again, man? What are you doing? What's the point? And he was like, I'm just trying to survive. And I was like, oh, that's why. That's why people try multiple times. They're not just trying because people want them to quit. You're trying to survive. And that started to change things for me where I was like, okay, it doesn't really matter how many times you relapse. As long as you're continuing to try,
Mhm.
that's what matters. For a
Mhm.
long time, like I wouldn't pay attention to my numbers. I didn't think it was a big deal because that's another thing that like if you were to have a drink tomorrow, oh no, all 300 whatever days are gone. Who fucking cares? Are you sober the next day? Are you trying to not let it happen again? Then keep doing that. Like just
Right.
as long as you keep trying, those numbers don't fucking matter.
That's the one thing from AA is, like, the one day at a time, because you always so today you were an asshole to the person, the cashier, maybe you were a little short with them, but, like, you always have tomorrow to you recognize it and you can be nicer to somebody tomorrow, and, like, that's the same with drinking, like, I tried to quit how many times, but, like, you always can try again and keep trying.
Yeah.
Life is a lifelong thing, and you should always be working on yourself, and you can always be a better person. So, like, it's the same with drinking. Like, if you fall and fail, get back up and try it again.
Yeah.
Try quitting again, not drink again.
No, drink more.
Just black out.
What would you say has helped you this round in staying sober, or has helped you to be more mindful um, of like your that self talk? Does that make sense?
Mhm. Um, Therapy has helped a lot. Just get the tools.
If you want to just
What? Oh,
push the
my therapist, things have clicked where she said, "Brianna, like, all these things you say to yourself, would you just walk up to some guy on the street and say that to them?" I'm like, "Well, no." She's like, "Yeah." And for some reason, that stupid little thing stuck with me. Like, "Brianna, why are you talking to yourself like that? You wouldn't go tell a stranger that. You wouldn't tell a stranger they suck and they're a loser and they can't do anything." Like, and the same thing she's told me, the dollar bill thing, where no matter how damaged or torn or crinkled up it gets and how used it is, it's still a dollar. It still has value. It still has worth. And like I get down on my worth and my self-love and I remember that and like you can always start somewhere and like positive affirmations. It's the weirdest thing because when I started doing them and looking myself in the mirror and telling myself some things like you rock or you're going to kill it today. You're going to do great at whatever it is or you're going to have a good work day. It feels so weird in the beginning, but then and some days it still feels weird, but it's just being consistent. When I start to fall off of those things and like when I have a really bad day like trying to journal, like writing it down on paper and just getting it out or when I have time going to the gym and I will literally take the traumatic things in my life and remember them. And as I'm doing freaking reps, I'm just like, ah, like getting like pissed off.
yeah.
So just trying to appreciate all the small things. Like,
Blink 182.
yeah. Just like the trees and like I'm a freak for like sunsets and sunrises and a mushroom in the woods, like how it
Yeah, I still
looks.
can't believe you ate that mushroom. That was
That's
insane.
yeah, I'm tripping pretty hard right now. But just finding healthy outlets that aren't boozing or abusing drugs.
Boozing or abusing.
Boozing or abusing. And I still feel it come out in other forms. Like sometimes I'll binge eat
Mm.
and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I talked to my therapist about it and she's like, "No, you don't have a disorder, but like she's like, it's definitely not healthy behavior, to go to Chipotle and eat the whole burrito."
I,
But at least I'm recognizing it. Like I try to
yeah.
give myself credit. And my therapist will say that to me. Have you given yourself any credit? Because I am famous for doing all the things and not being like, good job, Brianna. I never give myself credit. So that's another big one is taking a step back, look at what you've actually accomplished in whatever amount of time and the fact you haven't fucking drank. Like some people will say like, "Wow, what an accomplishment." When you tell them how long you've been sober.
Yeah.
And it's like I think of it and I'm like, it's not that big a deal.
I know. I was just gonna say I never take it well when somebody's like, "Oh,
Right.
congrats!" I'm like, "Fucking,
You're like, "Oh,
I'm still a piece of shit," but
yeah,
thank you.
I still suck." But yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention that. Another thing too is having support and people who care and know. When I quit this time around, I've been upfront and loud about it, and I don't care. Like, if somebody's like, "Oh, she was an alcoholic," like, it's like, if I can talk about it and maybe implant some of that light into somebody else, that makes me feel good. And I've seen it, like, even at my waitressing job, like, I talk smack about the owner, and I called him a drunk, which wasn't very nice of me, but I was so frustrated, and the place was toxic, but he was there one day drinking after his shift, and you could see it where he was interested in what I have.
Oh,
And I've had that happen a few times now where people have come to me and I'm like, "Whoa." Like nobody ever came to me before. I don't know what I'm doing. I have my head up my ass half the time, but sure, like I'll give you advice about this, but it's cool to see that. And it's cool. I think when people know what you're trying to do, it makes you stick to it more.
yeah.
So, just like my grandma and there's no better feeling than having I had all these people seeing me destroy myself and to have them see me now building myself back up is like the coolest thing. And I even looked in the mirror like 2 months in and I could see my eyes again. And I hadn't seen like my face in so long. I don't know if that makes sense to you,
No,
but
I know
like
exactly what you're
my
saying.
spirit was just gone. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, "Where the fuck have you been?" Like, and it's just so rewarding. Like it's just crazy to me. And I wish I would have done it sooner. But like there's nothing better than having people in your life who have seen you do all these things and just be on the brink of like death basically and then see you for who you were again.
Yeah.
Like my mom was like, "I heard you laugh like when you were a little girl and I haven't heard you do that in so long." So it's just stuff like that too. It just keeps me going
Yeah.
and keeps me wanting to stay sober. Shake it off.
Yeah. If you could stop being such a pussy, that'd be fucking
So many
great.
emotions.
No, that's fucking fantastic. Well, dude, thank you for doing this and being willing to be open about it. I'd love to, do this again further down the
Oh, I'd
line.
love to.
Yeah. So that's another reason to stay sober so you could do the podcast again.
Yeah. Yeah. Start drink. What, you don't want me on here drunk?
Huh? It's almost happened before.
Oh god.
And I said, no.
With somebody else
Yeah.
who came on here? Oh
Yeah.
no.
But yeah, dude, fucking thank you for doing this.
Mhm.
And to the listeners, be well to yourselves.
Be well.
Shut the
Be
fuck.
kind.
God damn it. That's my sign off and you're ruined it.